welcome back to the Velvet Underworld channels. And after this video, I would really like to know your thoughts about these stories. Feel free to share it under the comment sections and where you come from so that we could connect to each other better through this channel. Thank you.
Get ready. I'll make you mine.
I didn't scream when Cale Donahue said I'd be his wife. I screamed when I realized my father had already signed the papers. The marriage certificate sat on the mahogany desk between us, my signature forged in ink that looked almost exactly like my own handwriting. Almost. The S in Senna curled wrong, too tight, too controlled. I always wrote my name like I was trying to escape the page. "Your father has excellent penmanship," Kyle said, his voice carrying the kind of calm that made my skin crawl. He stood by the window of his study, hands clasped behind his back, watching the rain sheet down the glass. He hadn't looked at me since his men brought me in. He practiced for 3 days before he got it right. 3 days. My father had spent 3 days learning to forge my signature while I'd been at work, serving coffee to strangers, completely unaware that my life was being sold out from under me. "This isn't legal," I said, and I hated how small my voice sounded. Hated the tremor in my hands as I reached for the certificate. "You can't just—" "I can." He turned then, and I saw his face clearly for the first time. Sharp jaw. Dark eyes that assessed me the way a jeweler might assess a stone, looking for flaws, for value, for potential. He was older than me, maybe 15 years, with silver threading through black hair at his temples. Handsome in the way that dangerous things often are. "Your father owed me $3.2 million, Senna. He had 3 options. Pay in full, pay in blood, or pay in collateral. I'm not collateral. I'm a person. You're both." He moved toward the desk, each step measured and deliberate. "He chose this option because he believed it would keep you alive." He was right. Cale braced his hands on the desk, leaning forward until I could see the exact shade of his eyes, almost black, with a ring of dark amber around the pupils. "If you'd rather I collect the debt in blood, I can put a bullet in your father's head tonight, and we can call this arrangement void. Your choice." My throat closed. I thought of my father. Weak, gambling addicted, perpetually disappointed in himself and everyone else. But still my father. Still the man who'd taught me to read, who'd carried me on his shoulders when I was small, who'd cried the day my mother died. "That's not a choice," I whispered. "No," Cale agreed. "But I'm giving you the illusion of one anyway. I find it makes the transition easier." The transition. As if I were changing jobs, not signing my life away to a man who owned half the city's underground and all of its secrets. "How long?" I asked. "How long what?" "How long do I have to stay married to you?" Something flickered across his face. Amusement, maybe, or satisfaction. "Until death do us part, Mrs. Donahue. That's generally how marriage works." Mrs. Donahue. The name felt like a collar clicking shut around my throat. "I won't share your bed," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. It was the only piece of control I had left, and I clung to it desperately. Cale studied me for a long moment, then straightened. "I don't recall asking you to." The relief that flooded through me was so intense it made me dizzy, but then he continued. "When I want you there, you'll know, and you'll come willingly, or you won't come at all. I have no interest in forcing myself on a woman who doesn't want me." His smile was cold and precise. "But make no mistake, Senna, you will want me. Eventually. They all do." The arrogance of it should have made me angry. Instead, it terrified me, because there was no bravado in his tone, no masculine posturing, just certainty, the kind of certainty that came from years of watching people bend, break, and ultimately surrender. "I want to see my father," I said. "No. He's my—" He sold you to save his own skin. You don't owe him your loyalty. Kyle walked to a small bar cart near the window and poured himself 2 fingers of something amber. He didn't offer me any. Your father is alive because I allow it. He'll stay that way as long as you're cooperative. Those are the terms. I didn't agree to any terms. Your signature says otherwise. He gestured to the certificate with his glass. That's not my signature. It is legally, which is all that matters. He took a sip, watching me over the rim. You can fight this, Senna. Scream, cry, threaten legal action. Contact the police if you'd like. I have 6 officers on payroll who'd be happy to explain that this is a legitimate marriage between 2 consenting adults. Or you can accept reality and start learning how to survive it. Survive? The word tasted bitter. Is that what you call this? That's what I call everything. He set down his glass. Thorn will show you to your room. You'll find clothes in the closet, toiletries in the bathroom. If you need anything else, ask him. Not me. Who's Thorn? As if summoned, the door opened. A man entered, tall, broad-shouldered, with a scar running from his left eyebrow to his cheekbone. He looked like he'd been carved from granite and animated by pure violence. Mrs. Donahue needs an escort to the East Wing, Cale said without looking at either of us. Make sure she understands the boundaries. Boundaries. I didn't like the sound of that. Thorn nodded once and gestured toward the door. I stood on shaking legs, every instinct screaming at me to run, but there was nowhere to go. 4 men had brought me here from my apartment 3 hours ago. They'd been polite, almost apologetic, but their guns had been very real. I followed Thorn into the hallway. The house, if you could call it that, was enormous. Vaulted ceilings, marble floors, artwork that probably cost more than my entire apartment building. We walked in silence, our footsteps echoing. I counted doors, noted windows, memorized the layout. How many guards? I asked quietly. Thorn didn't look at me. Enough. How many? 12 inside at all times, 24 on the grounds. More if Mr. Donahue expects trouble. 36 men. My stomach sank. Where are we? 20 minutes outside the city. You won't find the address on any map. Of course not. We climbed a curved staircase to the 2nd floor. The East Wing, apparently. Thorn stopped in front of a heavy wooden door and pushed it open. The room beyond was beautiful in the way that prisons could be beautiful if they had unlimited budgets. King-sized bed with silk sheets, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking dark grounds, a sitting area with velvet chairs, a bathroom visible through an open door, all white marble and gold fixtures. Bars on the windows? I asked. Sensors. You open one? Every guard in the house knows within 3 seconds. Thorn's expression didn't change. Mr. Donahue doesn't believe in bars. He believes in consequences. I walked to the window and looked out. Rain obscured most of the view, but I could make out shapes, trees, a high wall in the distance, what might have been a gatehouse, no neighboring houses, no lights except those from the property itself. What are the boundaries? I asked, remembering Cale's words. 1st floor common areas are accessible during the day. Kitchen, library, morning room. The East Wing is yours. Mr. Donahue's office and the West Wing are off-limits. The grounds are off-limits. Attempting to leave the property results in immediate confinement to this room until Mr. Donahue decides otherwise. I'm a prisoner. You're his wife. Thorn said it like there was no difference. Dinner is at 7. You're expected to attend unless told otherwise. Dress code is formal. He left before I could ask anything else. I stood alone in my gilded cage and tried to breathe. I didn't go to dinner that first night. No one came to force me. No one knocked on my door. At 7:15, I heard footsteps in the hallway, pause outside my room, then continue. That was all. The silence was worse than any punishment. I explored my prison instead. The closet was full of clothes in my exact size, dresses, slacks, blouses, all in jewel tones and expensive fabrics. The bathroom had everything I could need and several things I didn't. The dresser drawers held lingerie that made my face heat. Everything had been chosen for me, prepared for me, as if I were a doll being arranged in a dollhouse. I found my phone in the nightstand drawer. Dead. The charger was there too, but when I plugged it in, nothing happened. They'd deactivated it. I was completely cut off. I tried the door. Unlocked. That surprised me until I stepped into the hallway and saw the guard at the end of the corridor. He didn't acknowledge me, but I felt his attention like a physical weight. I went back inside. Sleep didn't come. I lay in that enormous bed, staring at the ceiling, and tried to make sense of my new reality. 24 hours ago, I'd been Cenevex, 26 years old, barely scraping by on tips and student loan payments, worried about making rent. Now I was Senna Donahue, property of a man who could make people disappear with a phone call. My father had done this. The rage came then, hot and overwhelming. I wanted to scream at him, to demand why he'd thought gambling was more important than my freedom. But beneath the rage was something worse: understanding. My father had always chosen the easy path, always looked for shortcuts, always believed the next hand would be the winning one. Of course he'd sacrificed me. It was the most predictable thing he'd ever done, and I'd never seen it coming. That was the part that killed me. I'd known what he was, known his weaknesses, and I'd still been blindsided. I wouldn't make that mistake again. If I was going to survive this, I needed to be smarter, faster. I needed to see 3 moves ahead the way Kale clearly did. I needed to escape. The thought crystallized in my mind with perfect clarity. This wasn't Stockholm Syndrome waiting to happen. This wasn't a dark romance where I'd fall for my captor and learn to love my cage. This was kidnapping, coercion, imprisonment. And I was getting out. I spent the next 3 days observing. I went to breakfast in the morning room, a sun-filled space overlooking a garden I wasn't allowed to enter. Kale was never there. I ate alone while a silent maid refilled my coffee. I went to dinner every evening. Kale attended those. He sat at the head of a table that could seat 20, and I sat to his right. We didn't speak. He read reports while eating, occasionally making notes in the margins. I picked at my food and memorized everything. The guards changed shifts at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. The ones on night duty were more alert, more suspicious. The day shift got comfortable. Thorne was always nearby, a silent shadow. But he left Kale's side twice a day, once at 9 a.m., once at 3 p.m. 15 minutes each time. The kitchen. Staff arrived at 5:30 a.m. and left by 8 p.m. There was a service entrance they used, away from the main doors. The wall around the property was 12 feet high. No barbed wire on top, but cameras everywhere. The gate required a code and biometric scan. But the wall had trees near it. Old oaks with branches that hung over. I could climb trees. I'd been a tomboy as a kid, always scaling things I shouldn't. It had been years, but the skill was still there, dormant. On the 4th day, I made my move. I woke at 5 a.m., dressed in the darkest clothes I could find, black leggings, a black sweater. I waited until I heard the shift change, the brief moment of overlap when the guards were focused on their handoff. I slipped out of my room. The hallway was empty. I moved quickly, quietly, remembering the route I'd mapped in my head. Down the servants' staircase, through the back corridor, into the mudroom near the kitchen. The service door was locked, but it was a simple deadbolt. I turned it slowly, cringing at every tiny sound. The door opened. Cold morning air hit my face. I was outside. The grounds were massive, shadowy in the pre-dawn darkness. I could see the wall in the distance, a dark line against the slightly lighter sky. I ran toward it, keeping low, staying near the hedges. My heart hammered so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. I made it halfway across the lawn before the lights came on. Not all at once. That would have been merciful. Instead, they flickered to life in a sequence one after another, illuminating my path like a runway, like they'd been waiting for me. I froze. Keep going. Kale's voice came from behind me, not close but not distant either. I spun around. He stood on the terrace, hands in his pockets, watching me with an expression I couldn't read. He wore a dark suit despite the hour, perfectly composed. You've made it this far, he continued. You might as well see how close you get. It was a trap. Obviously a trap. But what choice did I have? I bolted. I ran harder than I'd ever run in my life. The wall loomed ahead, the oak tree beside it. I could hear footsteps behind me now. Guards, multiple sets, moving with terrifying efficiency. I reached the tree and jumped for the lowest branch. My fingers found bark, held. I pulled myself up, scraping my arms, my legs, not caring about the pain. The next branch. The next. I was maybe 8 feet off the ground when hands grabbed my ankle. I kicked out blindly, connected with something solid. A grunt of pain. But there were more of them. Too many. They pulled me down like gravity itself had turned against me, and I hit the ground hard enough to knock the wind from my lungs. Strong hands hauled me upright. I struggled, but it was pointless. There were 4 guards surrounding me, and I was gasping for air, my vision spotty. They marched me back across the lawn, back through the door, back through the corridors I'd snuck through minutes ago. But they didn't take me to my room. They took me to Kale's office. He was already there, seated behind his desk, that same unreadable expression on his face. The guards deposited me in the chair across from him and left without a word. The door closed. Silence. Kale studied me. I stared back, trying to control my breathing, trying to look defiant instead of terrified. 3 days, he finally said. I was betting on 4. What? I wagered Thorne you'd try to escape within 4 days. He said 3. He wins. Kyle leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. You're predictable, Senna. That's disappointing. Rage flooded through me, washing away the fear. You knew. You let me try. I encouraged it. He gestured to the window. That oak tree was trimmed last month. I had the gardeners leave branches near the wall specifically. The service door lock is the easiest in the house. The shift change happens at dawn for a reason. My stomach dropped. You wanted me to run. I needed you to understand something. He stood, moved around the desk. I tensed, but he walked past me to the bar cart. Poured himself water this time. Still didn't offer me any. Every route you plotted, I plotted first. Every weakness you found, I planted. Every guard you avoided was briefed on your likely path. This isn't a house, Senna. It's a chessboard. And you've been playing against a grandmaster. The humiliation was crushing. I'd thought I was being clever, observant. I'd thought I was 3 steps ahead. I was nowhere. Now you know, Kale continued. You can't escape through planning or stealth. So let's discuss your other options. He came to stand in front of me, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. You could try to seduce a guard. Thorne is gay, and the others are terrified of what I'd do to them if they touched you. You could try to call for help. I control the phone lines and internet. You could try to signal someone from the windows. We're surrounded by 400 acres of private land. You could try to kill me. Good luck getting close enough. I hate you, I whispered. I know. Use it. His voice softened, just slightly. Hate keeps you sharp. Resignation makes you weak. But channel it into something productive. You can't leave, Senna, so stop trying to escape and start learning how to survive. Why? The question burst out of me. Why go through all this? Why marry me? You could have just taken the money from my father some other way. You could have... Your father didn't have money. He had you. Kyle crouched down, bringing us eye to eye. And you, Senna Vex, have a very particular value. What value? I'm nobody. I'm a waitress with student loans, and your mother was Lydia Vex. The air left my lungs. My mother. Dead 15 years. I barely remembered her. Just fragments. Her laugh. The way she sang while cooking. The funeral where I'd been too young to understand that she wasn't coming back. What does my mother have to do with this? Everything. Kale stood. Your mother was the daughter of Dominic Vex. Do you know that name? I shook my head. Your grandfather controlled the eastern seaboard's shipping routes for 30 years. When he died, his empire fractured, his lieutenants scattered, his assets were absorbed by rivals. But there was a clause in his will. Any direct descendant who married into one of the 5 founding families would inherit controlling interest in the Vex Trust. $2 billion in assets, Senna. Shipping routes, port access, political connections, an empire waiting to be reclaimed. My head spun. That's insane. I didn't even know. Your mother left that world. She wanted nothing to do with it. She married your father specifically because he was nobody, because he had no connections to the families. She thought she could disappear. His expression turned cold. She did, in a way. But you didn't. So this was never about my father's debt. Oh, the debt is real. And convenient. But no, this was always about you. Cale moved back to his desk. The Donahues are one of the 5 founding families. This marriage gives me legal claim to your inheritance. And it gives you something too. What? Protection. Because the moment the other families learn you exist, they'll come for you. They'll marry you by force if necessary, or kill you to prevent anyone else from claiming the trust. Either way, you're a liability walking around unattached. He picked up a file and tossed it across the desk. These are the death threats that arrived the day news of our marriage went public. 7 separate organizations. 3 of them sent very detailed descriptions of what they'd do to you if they got their hands on you. I didn't want to open the file, didn't want to see. But my hands moved on their own. The words on the first page made me want to vomit. Still think you'd be safer out there? Cale asked quietly. I dropped the file like it had burned me. You're lying. This is manipulation. It's reality. Welcome to it. I stood on shaking legs. I want proof. I want to speak to someone who can verify. Who? Your father? He knew exactly who you were when he gambled you away. Why do you think he came to me specifically? He knew the marriage would activate the inheritance clause. He thought he'd get a cut once I claimed the trust. Cale's smile was razor sharp. He was wrong. The prenuptial agreement gives him nothing. My father had known what I was worth, and had sold me anyway, betting on scraps from the table. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the desk. I need air, I managed. Sit down before you fall down. I need... Sit. The command in his voice made my knees buckle. I collapsed back into the chair. Cale pressed a button on his desk. Moments later, Thorne entered with a glass of water. He set it in front of me without a word and left. I drank. My hands shook. You're in shock, Cale observed. Understandable, but we don't have time for extended processing. The trust transfers to my control in 3 months. Until then, you're the most valuable target in this city. You need to be smart. You need to be aware. And you need to stop wasting energy on escape plans that will never work. What do you want from me? I asked hoarsely. Compliance. At minimum. He paused. At best, partnership. There's a role for you in this, Senna. You're not just a wife on paper. You're leverage. You're access. You're a key to an empire. But only if you're willing to play the part. And if I'm not? Then you stay locked in the East Wing for the rest of your life while I manage the trust alone. Your choice. Another choice that wasn't a choice. I looked at him. Really looked. Tried to see past the perfect suit and calculated calm. Tried to find something human underneath. Why you? I asked. If I'm so valuable, Why did my father bring me to you instead of one of the other families? Because I paid him more. That's it? That's enough. But something flickered across his face. And because he knew I'd keep you alive, the others would have married you and killed you within the month, then claimed the inheritance as your widower. I have a reputation for keeping my assets intact. I'm an asset. You're many things. Asset is the simplest. I wanted to throw the water in his face, wanted to scream, wanted to wake up from this nightmare and find myself back in my cramped apartment, complaining about rent and rude customers. But none of that would change anything. I set down the glass carefully. What happens now? Now you rest. Tomorrow, we start your education. Education? You need to learn how to move in this world, how to speak, how to dress, how to navigate social situations without getting yourself killed. You need to understand the families, the alliances, the politics. You need to become someone who can stand at my side in public without looking like a terrified waitress. The insult stung because it was accurate. And if I refuse? You won't. Kyle's certainty was maddening. Because you're smart enough to know that being useful is safer than being ornamental. And you're too angry at your father to give up and let him win by default. He saw too much. Read me too easily. I stood. I'd like to go back to my room now. Thorn will escort you. As if summoned again, the door opened. Thorn stood waiting. I walked past Kale without looking at him. But at the doorway, I stopped. You said hate keeps me sharp, I said to the air. You're right. I'll remember that. Good, Kale replied. I'm counting on it. My education began the next morning. A woman arrived at my room at 8 a.m., tall, elegant, with silver hair in a perfect chignon and eyes like chips of ice. She introduced herself as Petra Leon, etiquette consultant. We have 3 months to turn you into someone who belongs in society, she said, looking me up and down with barely concealed disdain. That's not a lot of time for the work that needs to be done. I bit back a retort. Kyle was right about one thing. Being useful was a better strategy than being defiant. At least useful gave me information, access, potential leverage. Where do we start? I asked. Petra's eyebrow rose a fraction, surprised by my cooperation. Posture. You slouch like you're trying to disappear. In this world, that makes you prey. She wasn't wrong. I'd spent my whole life trying to take up less space, to not draw attention. It was a survival mechanism from childhood. Stay small, stay quiet. Don't give them a reason to notice you. Shoulders back, Petra instructed. Chin level. Imagine a string pulling you upward from the crown of your head. Good. Now walk. I walked across the room. She critiqued every step. By lunch, my back ached and my head throbbed from clenching my jaw. By dinner, I could glide across a room without thinking about it, could hold a champagne glass properly, could shake hands with the exact right amount of firmness. Kale watched from his seat as I entered the dining room that evening. I saw his eyes track my movement, saw the slight nod of approval. Better, he said. I didn't respond, just took my seat with perfect posture and let the maid serve me. Petra says you're a quick study, Kale continued. I'm motivated. By what? I met his eyes. Survival, like you said. His smile was slight but genuine. There's hope for you yet, Mrs. Donahue. The name still felt wrong, but I was learning to wear it like armor. The days blurred together. Petra taught me etiquette, social graces, the unspoken rules of high society. A language tutor arrived to polish my Italian. Apparently, I needed to converse in the language of Kale's heritage. A fashion consultant updated my wardrobe with clothes that cost more than I used to make in a month. I absorbed everything like a sponge, but I also watched, listened, learned things Petra didn't teach. I learned that Kale woke at 5 a.m. every day and worked until midnight, that he drank his coffee black and hated inefficiency, that he was left-handed but had trained himself to shoot with both hands, that Thorne had been with him for 12 years and was more brother than employee. I learned the names of Cale's rivals, the Morellis, who controlled the South Side, the Katsaros family, who ran the ports, the Ruiz cartel, new to the city but expanding fast, the Calabreses, old money and old grudges. I learned that Cale's father had built this empire and that Cale had expanded it, that he was feared but also respected, that he never made threats he couldn't keep. And I learned that everyone who worked for him was terrified of disappointing him. Including me, I realized with disturbing clarity. On the 14th day, Cale told me we were going to a gala. The Marconi Foundation's annual charity event, he explained over breakfast. Every family will be there. It's your debut. My stomach dropped. I'm not ready. You are. Petra says you've mastered everything she's taught you. That's not the same as, you'll be fine. Follow my lead. Don't volunteer information. If someone asks about your background, keep it vague. You're my wife. That's all they need to know. What if they ask about the trust? They won't. Not directly. But they'll probe. They'll test you to see how much you know, how comfortable you are. Stay close to me. Don't wander off. The warning in his tone was clear. That evening, I dressed in a gown that probably cost more than my old car, deep emerald silk that made my dark hair look almost black and my pale skin luminous. The stylist who'd been sent to prepare me did my makeup with a light hand, emphasizing my eyes, my cheekbones. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. Cale was waiting at the bottom of the staircase. He wore a tuxedo that fit him like a weapon, all clean lines and understated power. When he saw me, something flickered in his expression, there and gone too fast to name. "You'll do," he said simply. A car waited outside. Not a limo. Kyle apparently thought those were ostentatious. Instead, a sleek black sedan with bulletproof windows and a driver who looked like he could bench press a tank. I slid into the back seat. Kyle sat beside me, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something dark and woody that probably cost a fortune. "Nervous?" he asked as we pulled away from the house. "Yes." "Good. Fear keeps you alert." "You say that like it's a positive thing." "It is. Complacency kills more people than bullets in this life." I looked out the window at the passing darkness. "Do you ever stop thinking about survival?" "No." He said it without hesitation. "And neither should you." The gala was being held at the Ashworth Hotel, a landmark building in the heart of the city. We pulled up to a red carpet, actual paparazzi flashing cameras, a crowd of people in formal wear streaming through the entrance. Kyle got out first and offered me his hand. I took it. His grip was firm, steadying. We walked the carpet together. Cameras flashed. Someone shouted Cale's name, asking about business deals, about rumors of expansion. He ignored them all. Inside, the ballroom was stunning. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, an orchestra playing something classical. People moved through the space like dancers, conversations flowing, champagne circulating, and every eye in the room turned to us. "Breathe," Cale murmured. "You're doing fine." I kept my chin up, my shoulders back, just like Petra taught me. Smiled politely. Let Cale guide me through the crowd. People approached to congratulate him on his marriage. I shook hands, made small talk, tried not to show how utterly out of my depth I felt. A woman in her 50s with a severe face and expensive jewelry cornered us near the bar. "Kyle," she purred, "and this must be your lovely bride. I'm Valentina Morelli." Morelli, one of the rival families. "Valentina." Kyle's tone was polite but cold. "Lovely to see you." "And you." Her eyes raked over me. "Tell me, dear, where did you two meet? Such a whirlwind romance, I hear." "Through mutual acquaintances," I said smoothly, remembering Cale's instructions. "It was very unexpected." "I'm sure." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "You seem very young." 26. And before your marriage? What did you do? Warning bells rang in my head. This was a test. I worked in hospitality, I said vaguely. How charming. Such a different world from this one. Very different, I agreed. I'm still learning. I'm sure Kale is an excellent teacher. She leaned in slightly. Though I must admit, I'm surprised he married at all. He's always been so independent. The insinuation was clear. What leverage did you use to trap him? Love makes people do unexpected things, I said sweetly. Valentina's eyes narrowed. Indeed. She turned to Kyle. You must bring her to dinner sometime. I'd love to get to know her better. We'll see what our schedule allows, Kyle replied, which was clearly a diplomatic refusal. Valentina drifted away, but I could feel her watching us from across the room. You did well, Kyle said quietly. She hates me. She hates that I married someone she didn't vet first. It disrupts her intelligence network. Is everyone here an enemy? Most of them. The rest are allies who'd become enemies the moment I showed weakness. What a life. More people approached. I lost track of names and faces, but I remembered what Petra taught me. Posture, eye contact, firm handshakes. I smiled until my face hurt. And then I saw him. A man across the room, watching me with eyes that made my skin crawl. Tall, dark-haired, younger than Kale but with the same predatory stillness. He raised his glass slightly when our eyes met, an acknowledgement. Who's that? I asked Kale. He followed my gaze and his whole body went rigid. Dante Katsaros, he said, his voice dropping to a dangerous register. Stay away from him. Why? Because he's the one who sent the worst of the death threats in that file. My blood went cold. Dante started walking toward us. Stay close to me, Kyle ordered. His hand moved to the small of my back, possessive and protective at once. Dante stopped a few feet away, smiling. Kyle, congratulations on your marriage. Dante. No warmth. Pure ice. You must introduce me to your beautiful wife. No. The refusal was blunt. Dante's smile widened. How rude. I only want to welcome her to the family, so to speak. His eyes moved to me. I'm Dante Katsaros. Perhaps your husband has mentioned me? He has. I kept my voice steady. He said you're someone I should avoid. Dante laughed. Did he? Well, Kyle always was overprotective of his assets. The emphasis on the word assets was deliberate. He knew what I represented. My wife is not an asset, Kale said softly. She's my wife, and if you come near her again, I'll take it as a declaration of war. The threat hung in the air, crystalline and deadly. Dante's smile never wavered. No need for hostilities. I'm simply being neighborly. He looked at me again. Enjoy the party, Mrs. Donahue. I'm sure we'll see each other again soon. He walked away. I realized I'd stopped breathing. I want to leave, I whispered. Not yet. If we leave now, it looks like weakness. We stay for one more hour, we socialize, and then we go. Kale's hand was still on my back, warm through the silk. You're safe. I won't let him touch you. And despite everything, despite the forced marriage and the cage and the manipulation, I believed him. We stayed the full hour. I made conversation I didn't remember, smiled at people whose names I'd forget by morning, but the whole time I felt Dante's eyes on me from across the room. When we finally left, I practically collapsed into the car. You did very well, Kyle said. I feel like I just ran a marathon. You'll get used to it. I don't want to get used to it. He looked at me, really looked, and for the first time I saw something like sympathy in his expression. I know, but this is your life now. The sooner you adapt, the easier it becomes. Does it ever actually become easy? No, he admitted. But you learn to wear the mask until you forget it's there. That night, I dreamed of Dante Katsaros and woke up sweating. The next morning, Kale summoned me to his office. I went warily, remembering the last time I'd been there, caught trying to escape, humiliated, trapped. But this time he gestured to the chair across from his desk like we were having a normal meeting. "The gala went well," he said. "Better than expected. You handled Valentina and Dante perfectly." I barely said anything. "Exactly. You didn't oversell. Didn't provide ammunition. That's a skill most people take years to learn." He slid a folder across the desk. "These are the families you need to know. Histories, alliances, current conflicts. Memorize them." I opened the folder. Photos, names, relationship charts. It looked like the world's most dangerous family tree. "Why?" I asked. "Because knowledge is leverage, and if something happens to me, you'll need to know who to trust and who to run from." The casual mention of his death sent ice through my veins. "You think something's going to happen to you?" "In this life, it's always a possibility. I'm prepared for it. You should be too." He leaned back. "I'm having a panic room installed in the East Wing. Thorn will show you how to access it. If there's ever an attack, you go straight there. Don't try to help. Don't try to fight. Just hide and wait for Thorn to get you out." "You're serious?" "I'm always serious." I looked down at the folder, at the faces of people who wanted me dead or married or both. "This is insane. This is reality. Your reality now." I wanted to argue, but what was the point? He was right. So I took the folder to my room and I studied. I learned that Valentina Morelli had killed her own brother to take control of the family, that Dante Katsaros had been engaged 3 times, and all 3 fiancés had died in convenient accidents, that the Ruiz cartel had overthrown a government in their home country before expanding into the US. These were the people I had to smile at, shake hands with, pretend to like. No wonder Kale never relaxed. The weeks passed in a blur of preparation. More galas, more dinners, more occasions where I had to perform the role of Kale's devoted wife. And slowly, imperceptibly, it started to feel less like acting. Not that I was falling for him. I wasn't naive enough for that. But I was starting to understand him, the way he thought, the way he operated, the precise calculations behind every decision. He was brilliant in a terrifying way, and being around him was like standing next to a bonfire, dangerous but mesmerizing. I caught myself watching him sometimes, the way his hands moved when he was working, the way his jaw tightened when something displeased him, the way he listened when I spoke, actually listened, like my words mattered. It scared me how much I was learning to read him, and it scared me more that he seemed to be reading me just as easily. One evening, about 6 weeks into the marriage, we were in his office going over security protocols. He'd insisted I learn them, said I needed to know the evacuation routes, the safe houses, the emergency contacts. "If Thorn is compromised," he was saying, "you call this number." He wrote it on a card. "It's a direct line to my second-in-command, Victor. He'll get you to safety." "Why are you telling me all this?" Kale looked up. "Because you're valuable. And because despite your best efforts to hate me, you're learning to be an asset." "I'm not an asset." "You're right." He stood, moved around the desk. "You're becoming something more interesting than that." My heart rate spiked. "What do you mean?" "You're becoming a partner." He stopped in front of me. "You handled the Marconi Gala perfectly. You've memorized the family structures. You're thinking strategically. That's not the behavior of someone who wants to escape anymore. Maybe I'm just biding my time. Maybe. Or maybe you're realizing that survival and success aren't mutually exclusive here." His eyes searched mine. "You're smarter than I expected, Senna. Smart enough to know that fighting me is less productive than fighting with me. With you. Against our mutual enemies. There's a difference." I stood, bringing us nearly eye to eye. "You're still my enemy. You're just the one I'm stuck with. For now." Something shifted in his expression. "But I'm a patient man, and I'm curious to see how long your hate lasts when it's not being fed by helplessness. You think I'll stop hating you because I've learned to navigate your world? I think you'll stop hating me when you realize I'm not your prison. I'm your protection. The arrogance of it should have enraged me. Instead, it made something in my chest tighten. Because he wasn't entirely wrong. In the past 6 weeks, I'd seen what life was like outside Kale's protection. I'd seen Dante's predatory stares. I'd heard Valentina's veiled threats. I'd read the reports of what happened to women in this world who were unattached, unprotected. Kyle was a cage, but he was also a fortress, and I was starting to confuse the two. I should go, I said, stepping back. Run away? His tone was mocking but not unkind. Strategic retreat. There's a difference. His smile was genuine this time. You're learning. I left before I could say something I'd regret. The trust transfer was scheduled for mid-November, 3 months from the wedding, just like Kale said. As the date approached, security increased. More guards, more protocols, more paranoia. Kale barely slept. I'd hear him moving through the house at all hours, checking systems, reviewing reports. You're going to burn out, I told him one night when I found him in his office at 2 a.m. He didn't look up from his laptop. I'll rest when the transfer is complete. You said that last week. Last week, the Morellis hadn't tried to bribe 3 of my port supervisors. I blinked. What? They failed. But the attempt was made. He finally looked at me. Why are you up? Couldn't sleep. Worried? Should I be? Probably. He closed his laptop. Sit. I sat. The transfer is in 4 days, he said. Once it's complete, I'll control the Vex Trust. $2 billion in assets, like I said. But until the papers are signed, you're still the leverage point. The other families know this. They're going to make moves. What kind of moves? Kidnapping, most likely. Or assassination. Take you out. The trust defaults to the next in line of succession, which would be contested among the families. Chaos. Opportunity. My mouth went dry. You think they'll try something in the next 4 days? I'd bet on it. He stood, moved to the window. I'm doubling your security detail. You don't go anywhere without Thorne and at least 3 guards. You don't answer the door, don't accept packages, don't deviate from established routines. I'm already living like a prisoner. You're living like someone who's worth billions. Get used to it. I joined him at the window. The grounds were dark, but I could see the shapes of guards patrolling. You really think they'll come? They'd be fools not to. And you? He glanced at me. What about me? Are you afraid? The question seemed to surprise him. Of dying? No. I've made peace with that possibility years ago. Of failing? Always. He turned to face me fully. Failure means you get hurt. Failure means the empire my father built crumbles. Failure means everything I've worked for is for nothing. So yes, Senna, I'm afraid of failing. It was the most honest thing he'd ever said to me. What can I do? I asked. Stay alive. Don't take risks. Trust my judgment. I don't trust you. I know. But trust my self-interest. I have too much invested in you to let you die. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't even particularly kind, but it was real. And somehow, that mattered more. 2 days before the transfer, Dante Cazzaro sent me flowers. Black roses, 24 of them, delivered to the house with a card that read, Soon. Kyle went ballistic. I'd never seen him lose control before. He ripped the card to pieces, had the flowers incinerated, and put out orders that anyone from the Katsaros organization who came within a mile of the property would be shot on sight. He's baiting you, I said, watching from the doorway of his office. I know what he's doing. Then, why react? Because he sent flowers to my wife, to my home. That's a declaration. Of what? Kyle looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Raw, unfiltered rage. That he wants you, that he thinks he can take you, that he's willing to start a war over it. He doesn't want me. He wants the trust. He wants both. Kale moved toward me. And he knows the surest way to destroy me is to take you away. The admission hung between us. I'm just an asset, I said, echoing his old words. You were. His voice dropped. You're not anymore. My pulse thundered. What am I then? He didn't answer, just looked at me with an intensity that made my skin burn. Then Thorne knocked on the door, breaking the moment. Sir, we have a situation. Kale's mask slammed back into place. What kind? The Ruiz cartel just made a move on the south side. They're pushing into Morelli territory. Timing? Either coincidental or coordinated with Katsaros. Kale swore. Double the guard on Senna, I need to handle this. No, I said. Both men looked at me. No, Kyle repeated. If you leave now, you're exposed. This could be the distraction. They create chaos on the south side. You go to handle it, and Dante makes his move here. Silence. She's right, Thorne said quietly. It's textbook misdirection. Kale's jaw tightened. Then we don't take the bait. Let the Morellis handle the Ruiz themselves. We stay here, stay fortified. That shows weakness, Thorne argued. It shows strategy. Kale looked at me. When did you get so good at this? I had a good teacher. Something like pride flickered across his face. That night the attacks came. Not where we expected. Not against the house. Against Kale's shipping operations. 4 warehouses set on fire simultaneously, millions in damages, dozens of employees evacuated. And through it all, Dante sent one text to Kale's phone. Checkmate. But it wasn't checkmate. Not yet. Because, while the fires burned and the chaos raged, I sat in Kale's office and made calls. To insurance companies, to fire departments, to backup suppliers. I coordinated responses, managed crises, acted as Kale's voice when he was handling the violence directly. Petra's training kicked in. The languages I'd learned, the protocols I'd memorized, the strategic thinking I'd absorbed. I became indispensable that night. And Kale noticed. When he returned at dawn, covered in soot and blood that wasn't his, he found me still at his desk, still working. You should be resting, he said. I'm finishing what you started. I handed him a report. The fires are contained. The employees are safe. The insurance claims are filed. And I found 3 warehouses we can lease short-term to maintain operations while we rebuild. He stared at the report, then at me. You did all this? You were busy. Someone had to. He set down the report and crossed to me. Before I could react, he cupped my face in. His hands, rough, calloused, gentle in a way that made my breath catch. You, he said softly, are extraordinary. And then he kissed me. It wasn't forceful, wasn't demanding, just a brush of lips against mine, there and gone, like he was testing something, asking a question. I should have pulled away, should have slapped him, should have reminded him that I was here against my will, that nothing had changed. But I didn't. Instead, I kissed him back. It lasted maybe 3 seconds, maybe a lifetime. When he pulled away, we were both breathing hard. That was a mistake, I whispered. Probably. He didn't move back. Do you want me to apologize? I stopped. Because I didn't know what I wanted anymore. 6 weeks ago, I'd wanted to escape. 4 weeks ago, I'd wanted revenge. 2 weeks ago, I'd wanted survival. Now I wanted this. Whatever this was. This dangerous, impossible thing growing between us. I'm still angry at you, I said. I know. I still hate what you did. How you trapped me. I know that too. But I couldn't finish. You don't hate me, he completed. Not anymore. I should. You should. His thumb brushed my cheekbone. But you don't. Because you understand now. You understand why I did it. Why I had to. Understanding doesn't make it right. No. But it makes it survivable. He finally stepped back. Get some rest, Senna. Tomorrow's the transfer. After that, things will calm down. I laughed bitterly. You don't believe that? No, but I like to pretend. He headed for the door, then paused. Thank you. For tonight. For everything you did. I didn't do it for you. I know. You did it for the employees. For the innocent people caught in the crossfire. That's why it matters more. He left. I sat in his chair, in his office, surrounded by his empire, and tried to figure out when exactly I'd stopped being his prisoner and started being his partner. The trust transferred without incident. It was almost anticlimactic. Lawyers, paperwork, signatures. Cale and I sat side by side in a conference room while men in suits shuffled documents and explained terms I barely understood. But I understood the outcome. $2 billion in assets, now under Cale's control. With me as his wife, the transfer was legal, binding, irreversible. We were worth a fortune together. Separately, we were just people. The realization hit me hard. This marriage wasn't just a cage, it was a merger. We were bound together by law, by money, by the very structure of the empire itself. Cale seemed to sense my thoughts. Under the table, out of sight, his hand found mine. I should have pulled away. I didn't. When it was over, when the papers were signed and the lawyers congratulated us, we walked out of the building into bright November sun. It's done, Cale said. What happens now? Now we consolidate, make sure the assets are secure, establish new protocols, and we wait to see who comes for us next. You think someone will? I know they will. He guided me to the car. But they'll be coming for an empire now, not just a woman. The stakes are different. In the car, I asked the question that had been burning in my mind. Why did you kiss me last night? He didn't pretend not to know what I meant. Because I wanted to. That's it? That's enough. Cale. You want me to say I have feelings for you? That this has become more than business? He looked at me directly. Fine. It has. Somewhere between watching you handle Valentina and watching you manage my warehouses, you stopped being a means to an end. You became the end itself. My heart stuttered. That's not possible. Why not? Because you're a strategist. You don't fall for your assets. You're not an asset. You're my wife. He said it with finality. And yes, that started as strategy. But strategy doesn't account for the fact that I think about you constantly, that I want your opinion on, decisions that have nothing to do with the trust, that the thought of Dante Katsaros anywhere near you makes me want to burn his empire to the ground. I couldn't breathe. This is obsession, possession. Maybe, probably. But it's also, he seemed to search for the word. Partnership. You challenged me last night. Made better decisions than I would have made in the heat of the moment. You've learned this world in weeks when most people take years. You're brilliant, Senna. And dangerous in ways I didn't anticipate. Dangerous how? His smile was grim. Because you're my greatest weakness now. And everyone knows it. The words echoed what he'd said months ago, but they meant something different now. I don't want to be your weakness, I said quietly. Too late. You already are. He looked out the window. The question is, what are you going to do with that power? It was a good question. What was I going to do? I'd spent 3 months learning to survive in Cale's world, learning to be useful, to be valuable, to be indispensable. And somewhere along the way, I'd stopped seeing him as my captor and started seeing him as, what? My partner? My equal? My choice? No, not a choice, because I'd never chosen any of this. But maybe I was choosing to stay. The realization shook me. I need time, I said, to think, to figure out what this is. Take all the time you need. We have the rest of our lives. The rest of our lives. The phrase should have terrified me. Instead, it felt almost like a promise. That night, there was a celebration. Cale hosted it at the house, a carefully curated guest list of allies and people who needed to see the transfer was legitimate. I wore a dress that cost more than my entire previous wardrobe combined and stood at Kale's side, playing the perfect wife. But this time, it didn't feel like playing. This time, when he introduced me as my wife, Senna, there was pride in his voice. And when I smiled and shook hands, it wasn't Petra's training guiding me. It was my own understanding of what needed to be done. Victor, Kale's second in command, cornered me near the bar. "You've surprised us all," he said in a thick Eastern European accent. "How so?" "We expected—" He gestured vaguely. "Resistance, escape attempts, hysterics. I tried the escape thing. Didn't work." He laughed. "Smart woman. Kyle chose well. Kyle chose strategically. Is there a difference?" Victor leaned closer. "I've worked for him for 8 years. I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you. He looks at me like I'm valuable. No. He looks at you like you matter. Trust me. Those are very different things." Before I could respond, Victor was called away. I stood alone, champagne in hand, watching Kale across the room. He was deep in conversation with a business associate, but even from a distance I could see the calculation in his eyes, the constant assessment of threats, opportunities, angles. He caught me looking and raised his glass slightly, a private acknowledgement. I raised mine back. The party continued late into the night, but around midnight Kyle excused himself and found me on the terrace where I'd gone for air. "Successful evening," he said, joining me at the railing. "Everyone seems convinced we're a real couple. We are a real couple. Legally. In every way that matters." He turned to me. "Do you regret it? The marriage? The last 3 months? All of it?" I thought about lying. About saying yes. I regretted every moment, every concession, every step closer to accepting this life. But I'd learned from Kale that strategic honesty was more powerful than comfortable lies. "I regret how it started," I said carefully. "I regret not having a choice. But the outcome?" I looked at him. "I'm not sure I'd change it even if I could." His expression shifted. "Why not?" "Because 3 months ago I was a waitress going nowhere. I was invisible, powerless, barely surviving. Now I'm worth billions. I have influence, knowledge, skills I never would have developed. I'm playing a game I didn't even know existed." I paused. "You forced me into this world, but I'm choosing to stay in it. For the power? For the possibility." I set down my champagne. "You taught me something, Kale. You taught me that surviving isn't enough, that I could be more than I ever believed I could be. And yes, you did it through manipulation and coercion, but you weren't wrong." He moved closer. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I'm done fighting you. I'm done pretending I want out." I met his eyes. "I'm in. Fully. As your partner, not your prisoner." "Partners in what? Everything? The empire? The trust? The wars you're fighting? All of it. That's dangerous." "Good. I'm done being safe." He cupped my face the way he had that night after the fires. "You know what this means? If you commit to this, there's no going back. You'll be a target forever. You'll live with guards, with threats, with the constant possibility of violence. I already live with all of that. The only difference is now I'm choosing it." "Why?" The question was raw, honest. I thought about all the reasons I could give: strategy, survival, the empire, the money. But there was only one truth. "Because of you," I said quietly. "Because somewhere in the last 3 months, you stopped being my enemy and became essential. And I don't know when that happened, or how, but it did. So yes, Kale, I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you." For a man who always had words, who always had a strategy, he seemed speechless. Then he kissed me. This time, it wasn't tentative, wasn't testing. It was possessive and claiming and everything a dark romance promised, dangerous and intoxicating and absolutely inevitable. I kissed him back with 3 months of tension, anger, fear, and something that might have been the beginning of love. When we finally broke apart, both. Breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. "You're mine," he said. Not a question, a statement of fact. "Yes," I agreed. "But you're mine too. That's the deal." His laugh was soft. "Partnership. Equal partnership. I can work with that." He pulled me closer, and we stood there on the terrace while the party continued inside, while guards patrolled the grounds, while enemies plotted in the darkness. But for that moment, it was just us. The ruthless mafia boss and the woman who'd become his greatest weakness, and somehow, impossibly, his greatest strength. 3 weeks later, Dante Katsaros made his move. It came at dawn, coordinated and brutal. 3 teams simultaneously. One attacking the house, one targeting Kale's main office downtown, one going after the shipping yards. But we were ready, because I'd been studying Dante's patterns. I'd noticed how he operated, the timing of his attacks, his preferred methods, his tendency to strike at multiple points to divide attention. I'd warned Kale. We'd fortified. We'd prepared. The attack on the house was repelled within minutes. The office had been evacuated the night before based on intelligence I'd pieced together from 3 separate sources. The shipping yards had extra security waiting. Dante's teams retreated with heavy casualties, and the next day, Kale sent a very clear message: a complete economic blockade on Katsaros operations. No goods moved through their ports. No suppliers would work with them. No banks would extend credit. Within a week, Dante requested a meeting. It happened in neutral territory, a restaurant that had been cleared of civilians, surrounded by guards from both sides. I went with Kale. He'd tried to leave me behind, but I'd refused. "I'm part of this," I'd said. "He needs to see that." So we sat across from Dante Katsaros and his second-in-command, and I felt the full weight of his attention. "Mrs. Donahue," he said smoothly, "you're even more impressive in person." "Cut the pleasantries," Kale said coldly. "You requested this meeting. Talk." Dante's smile never wavered. "I want to propose a truce. My attacks were overeager. I underestimated your resources. You underestimated my wife." Dante's eyes flickered to me. "Indeed. I didn't expect her to be so involved." "She's my partner," Kale said. "She sees what I see, knows what I know. Attack me, you attack her. Attack her, and I'll destroy everything you've built." A dangerous attachment. A necessary one. Dante leaned back. The rumors were right then. The ruthless Kale Donahue, brought low by a woman. I spoke before Kale could. Not brought low. Elevated. There's a difference. Dante's attention snapped to me fully. "You speak. I do. And I think. And I plan. Which is why you're here right now, asking for a truce instead of continuing a war you can't win." His expression darkened. Bold words. Accurate ones. You gambled that Kale would be distracted by me, that I'd be a weakness. You were wrong. I'm a multiplier. We're stronger together than either of us would be alone. That's why you're losing. Silence around the table. Then Dante laughed. Genuine surprise in the sound. "Kale, you really did choose well." "I know." Kale's hand found mine under the table. "Now let's discuss terms." The truce was hammered out over the next hour. Territorial agreements, trade arrangements, mutual non-aggression. It wasn't friendship. It would never be that. But it was stability. When we left, Kyle's grip on my hand tightened. "That was dangerous," he said. "That was necessary." He needed to see me as a threat, not a prize. "You were magnificent. I learned from the best." I smiled. "Besides, we're partners, remember? That means I don't hide behind you. I stand beside you. Even when it's dangerous? Especially then." In the car, he pulled me close. "I love you." The words hit me like a physical blow. He'd never said them before. Never even implied them beyond calling me essential, important, indispensable. But love? Kale. I know, it's early. It's complicated. It started with manipulation and coercion, but it's true anyway. He looked at me with absolute certainty. I love you, Senna, and that terrifies me more than any war, any rival, any threat I've ever faced, because losing you would destroy me in ways nothing else could. I should have been skeptical, should have questioned if love could grow from the foundation we had, but I thought about the last 3 months, about how he'd taught me, challenged me, pushed me to be more than I ever thought possible, about how he'd protected me even when I hated him, about how he looked at me not as possession but as partner. And I realized that love didn't always come from perfect beginnings. Sometimes it came from fire, from struggle, from two people learning to be equals in the middle of a war. I love you too, I said, and the words felt like truth. He kissed me then, deep and claiming, and I kissed him back with everything I had. When we finally broke apart, he smiled, a real smile, rare and beautiful. So what now? I asked. Now we build, together. An empire that's ours, not just mine. A partnership that's real, not just strategic. And the enemies? They'll keep coming. That's the nature of this life. Good. I settled against him. I'd hate to be bored. His laugh rumbled through his chest. Bored is the one thing you'll never be with me. 6 months later, we hosted a New Year's Eve gala. The grand ballroom was packed with every major family, every power player, every person who mattered in our world. And I moved through it like I'd been born to it. Confident, strategic, dangerous in my own right. Valentina Morelli cornered me near the champagne fountain. You've changed, she observed. I've evolved. Kyle's influence? Partnership. I smiled. We bring out the best in each other. Or the worst. But there was respect in her tone. You've proven more formidable than anyone expected. Thank you. That wasn't a compliment. I'm taking it as one anyway. She actually laughed. Perhaps we underestimated you. Yes, I agreed simply. You did. When midnight struck, Cale found me on the terrace again. Our place, apparently. Happy New Year, Mrs. Donahue. Happy New Year, Mr. Donahue. He pulled me close and we watched fireworks explode over the city. Our city now. Our empire. Regrets? He asked softly. I thought about that first night. The forged signature, the terror, the cage I'd been thrown into. I thought about everything that had happened since. The fear, the growth, the transformation. None, I said honestly. You forced me into this marriage, but I chose to stay. I chose us, and I'd make that choice again. Even knowing what it cost? Especially knowing what I gained. He kissed me as the fireworks painted the sky in gold and silver, as the city celebrated below, as our guards kept watch around us. And I kissed him back. This ruthless mafia boss who'd stolen my freedom and given me an empire. This man who'd taught me that strength came in many forms. This partner who'd become my greatest asset and my deepest weakness all at once. I love you, I whispered against his lips. I know, he said. You're mine. And you're mine. Always. The fireworks faded, but we stayed there. Two people who'd forged something real from something forced, something beautiful from something dangerous. We stayed there, the ruthless mafia boss and the woman who'd become his greatest weakness and his greatest strength. And absolutely, irrevocably, his equal.